Hey, good morning, everybody. Derek here from Bomb Socks with more Bomb Bites, where we feast upon the words of Christ, one bite at a time. So years ago, I had a student of mine come up to me and he said, "Brother Crimmon, why are we called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?" And I explained to him that this latter days is, it's Jesus' time was the former days and we are the latter days, meaning later on in the history of the world. And he just kind of had a blank stare on his face because I thought we were called the Latter day Saints. Like he showed me like ladder, like Laddr, like a ladder. And he goes, why aren't we called the Church of Jesus Christ Latter day Saints? I've always wondered that. And so I thought it was kind of funny because that is how we say it. It's the Latter day Saints, right? And so it is easy to get those confused if you haven't really seen it or familiar with it. So it is amazing what the letter T can do to a word, which is why this week for Come Follow Me from section 60 to 62, I thought I would focus on the letter T. It seemed like as I was reading these verses throughout these sections, it seems like the big principles that came up all had to do with the letter T. So all this week, we're going to kind of use that theme to be able to weave through section 60 to 62. So these 5 days of doing Bomb Bites, each principle is going to start with the letter T, just to kind of have a little fun theme to go through. In fact, let me share with you the first letter T right now. The first one is talent. Okay, so you go into section 60 of the Doctrine and Covenants, and what's going on here as far as context goes, you go way back to section 52 where the Lord had asked all of these, I think there's 17 companionships to go out and preach the word, right? To go out there, by the way, to teach the gospel. We talked about that. Well, some of them went, most of them went actually, but some of them did not, which is where you've got section 62 of the Doctrine and Covenants, as they're all gathering back, preparing to dedicate the land of Zion. So you go into section 60, verse number 1, "Behold, thus saith the Lord unto the elders of his church, who are to return speedily to the land from whence they came." Again, they're anticipating this dedication of the land of Zion, or the temple site, which they were told about in section 57. "Behold, it pleaseth me that you have come up hither." Then verse 2, "But with some I am not well pleased, for they will not open their mouths, but they hide the talent which I have given unto them, because of fear of man. Woe unto such, for mine anger is kindled against them." And then you go all the way down to verse 13, and it makes reference to that again. "Neither shalt thou bury thy talent, that it may not be known." And so we talked a little bit about gifts of the Spirit back in section 45, but talents might be a little bit different than gifts. So in the Come Follow Me manual, it talks about this very first principle. It says, "Lord is pleased when I open my mouth to share the gospel." We've all had experiences when we could have shared the gospel with someone, but for some reason we didn't. As you read the Lord's words to early missionaries who failed to open their mouths, think about your own opportunities to share the gospel. This question is a great one. How is your testimony of the gospel like a talent or a treasure from God? In what ways do we sometimes hide our talent? So a talent here, it can be a couple different things. When it's talking about hiding or burying your talent, the footnote actually takes you over to Matthew 25, where Jesus gives the parable of the talents, which is like a weight or a currency which was used by the Romans or the Greeks back in the day. And they would give talents to people, and then they would build on them, and others would hide them, fearing that they would lose them, or not sure what to do with them. And the Lord says, "Against those my anger is kindled." I'm not happy with those who are not using the talents which they have been given. So with this one right here, the word talent is actually an interesting word. So I always like to look up words I think I know the definition of, and it always adds a nice dimension to it. The word talent here, it just gives the definition. It says flair, which is interesting because when you click on it again, it says flair, aptitude, facility, gift, knack, technique, touch, bent, ability, expertise, capacity, power, faculty, strength, strong point, forte, genius, brilliance, dexterity, adroitness, there's a fun word, skill, cleverness, and virtuosity and artistry. That is a talent. Look at the antonyms: inability and clumsiness. And I know some of you, when you read that, you're just like, "Oh, Derek, that's me when it comes to sharing the gospel." The inability and the clumsiness. And I know I feel that way as well. There have been many times where, you're getting ready to try to share the gospel, and it just doesn't come out the way you hoped it would be. But all you do is make sure that you open your mouth. And I can promise you this: as you open your mouth, the Lord will increase your abilities and your talents to share the gospel. I've watched it happen in my own life. I remember as a young missionary teaching a lesson, and it was like the worst lesson ever. I think it was one that was worst ever taught in the history of the church. It was not good. And I remember going home that night using one of my favorite scriptures, Ether 12:27, that talks about, if men come unto me, I will show unto them their weakness, and their weakness will be made strong. And so I said, I promise I will do my best to teach, but please help me as I open my mouth. Help me to say the right things and become better at teaching. Well, the Lord took me at that, because look what I've been doing for 25 years. I'm teaching the gospel. And so I believe that as you open your mouth, the Lord will increase your talent to share the gospel. Some of you might not feel like you're good at it right now. Do it. Do not hide that talent or bury that talent that it may not be known. Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints have never been ones that have been asked to kind of hide behind the scenes. We've always been asked to be able to be a peculiar people and to step up and be different from the world. And in order to do that, you've got to step up and make your voice known. And so many of you are good at that, and you do it in different ways, but make sure you do not hide that talent. We all have those inabilities, and we all have those clumsinesses when we're sharing the gospel, but let's keep opening our mouths, and the Lord has promised that he will help us as we do it, and we'll build those talents up. I love that message. And thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and thanks for sharing, and we'll see you tomorrow with the second T for Latter-day Saints. Thanks, guys. Have a good day. Bye-bye.